Okay, welcome back to the Massive Impact Podcast. This is episode 009. This is the third in our series of Entrepreneurism. And the last session that we had, or the last recording that we had, we left off regarding turbulence. When becoming an entrepreneur, you are going to face turbulence. It's inevitable. It could be financial turbulence. It could be, resource turbulence. It could be client turbulence. It could be your own mental turbulence. There's a lot of things that just kind of come up that you don't plan on, and that's normal. That's normal for an entrepreneur. We're going to get into some ways to sort of circumvent or overcome the turbulence, but I wanted to read some stats to you quickly. These are business failure rate statistics, and of course, business failures depend on a lot of factors such as your industry, your location, time and operation, etc. But here are some key statistics, and these are drawn from some very savvy institutes. Again, general failure rates. First year, approximately 20% of new businesses will fail within their first year. Within the first 5 years, about 50% of businesses will fail. These are stats on general industry businesses across the board. First 10 years, roughly 65% of businesses will fail. Industry-specific failure rates within the information sector has one of the highest failure rates, I learned, with approximately 70.9% or 71, let's call it, percent of businesses failing within 10 years. Construction, around 59.9, call it 60% of construction businesses fail within 10 years. Retail trade, approximately 58.3% of retail businesses fail within 10 years, so over half. Startup failure rates. This is very eye-opening. Up to 90% of startups fail, with 10% not surviving the first year. So that's just on startups. Got a 90% chance against you. Now, of course, I'm not trying to get you down or depressed if you're looking at these stats and you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, starting your own gig, your own company, and we'll talk against the turbulence here in a few moments. But first-time startup founders have a success rate of 18%, so less than 1 in 5 first-time startup founders make it. Now, some reasons for the failures, okay? Number one, and this constitutes 42% of startup failures, it's lack of a market need. Okay, think about that. Lack of a market need. Are you thinking about doing something that people don't need? Well, is it more of a hobby that you're thinking about doing? Nothing wrong with that, by the way. But you got a 42% chance of failure if you're a startup and the market just doesn't need it. So you see shows on TV sometimes, Shark Tank and others, where people are looking for investors and the sharks will say, well, there's just not a need for that. Or you've created maybe a better mousetrap, if you will, but there's no need for that better mousetrap. So be thinking, does the market really need this? Is it a service-based? Is it a product-based? At the end of the day, who needs it? What's the demand out there? 29% fail because they run out of cash. So almost 30% because they run out of cash. Again, talking startups. 23% fail due to not having the right team in place. And I hope to talk about that here in a minute. Some of the pressures that owners put on themselves. They don't think about, putting it on their team, or maybe they have the wrong team. Okay, going back to restaurant failure rates. It's been obviously a pretty scrutinized industry for their failures. Regarding restaurants, within the first year, approximately 17% of independently owned full-service restaurants will fail within the first year. That's slightly lower than the 19% failure rate for other service providing startups. That surprises me, actually. Within the first 3 years, about 61% of independently operated restaurants close within their first 3 years. Within the first 5 years, roughly 80% of restaurants will close. Again, these are stats, doesn't mean it's going to apply to you, but every business that starts becomes a statistic in some way. So, what are the factors contributing to the restaurant failures? Economic challenges, high operational costs, including wages, food expenses, coupled with economic downturns. These can all strain profitability. Location issues, poor location choices can lead to insufficient customer traffic. The old adage, location, location, location. Management and experience, so inadequate management skills and lack of industry experience can result in operational inefficiencies. Marketing deficiencies, failure to effectively market the restaurant can lead to low customer awareness and patronage. Financial mismanagement, so improper pricing, inflated costs, and lack of financial planning can deplete resources quickly. Again, thought I would share those with you. So going back to my initial opening statement, you're going to face turbulence. We just went over percentages of failure rates and, everything from location to cash strain, etc. Look, at the end of the day, for a thriving business, you need customers. And you're only going to get customers if they know about you. And them knowing about you is not enough, but that is a major problem that most businesses have, is they don't know about you. So are you marketing? Are you advertising? Are you trying to do everything, by the way? Are you trying to do it all? You may have heard who, not what. And I like that motto. And basically it's saying, if you're trying to do it all, you need to be thinking of others that can do it for you. So don't try to figure everything out. A lot of entrepreneurs have to swallow their egos because, they're bullheaded and they say, well, I can do this. I can do this. And maybe you can. But are you trying to do it all? For me, when I started, I could not afford to do it all. And you may say, well, I can't afford to outsource it. Well, then maybe you should not consider starting up your own venture, because going, the loan route leads to a lot of despair, a lot of failure rates out there. Fortunately, again, for me, I employed a strategy of, I'm going to focus on sales. I'm going to focus on marketing. I'm going to focus on networking. I'm going to be very networked to others. I'm going to go out of my way to talk about what I do. One time I was at a birthday party and I was speaking to the family hosting it, the father, and our children went to the same school. And he asked, what do you do? And I simply said, I help factories become mega profitable. Manufacturing companies, doesn't matter what the product is. We squeeze all the inefficiencies out. We tighten up the costs. We improve throughput. We take out all of those inefficiencies and essentially add massive value to our clients. And that led to an assessment, a paid assessment. And then we were given the opportunity to, review several projects with them for a long-term plan. So again, are you talking about what you do? Are you networking? People probably just don't know about you when you're starting out. You could have the best product in the world. You could have the best service in the world. It does not matter. It does not matter. You need to, open up your Rolodex. You need to be calling every person that you know. And asking them, hey, do you have a need for this, or know someone that has a need for this? Probably a better opener would be, do you know someone that has a need for this? A little bit less of an invasive conversation, and let them think about, well, maybe I need this service of yours that you're offering me, or product that you're offering me. Another thing to think about, in addition to networking, and again, we could spend a whole session on that, but are you taking the time to really build out a strategy for the business that takes into account online campaigns, pricing, volume, etc. Do not go into a business that requires tons and tons of volume, because that's just a very bad, from the start, business model, in my opinion. When people say, oh, if we can just get, X hundred or X thousand customers, do you know how hard that is? Do you know how difficult that is when you're starting out a new company? It's difficult to get your first customer, typically. Starting is difficult. Getting that first yes, that first green light is difficult. So avoid going into something that requires tons and tons of volume, because you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, and you're going to get a lot of rejection in the first place starting out, more than what you would like to get. Let's just say that. So that's a couple of ways to overcome unnecessary turbulence. What's your model look like? We discussed having people do things. Maybe it's administrative things. I hate doing the admin stuff. Absolutely hate it. I don't desire to do it. So I have somebody on my team do 95% of the admin. Some stuff, I do have to look at, of course, obviously, but it gets filtered before it gets to me. We talked about the networking. We talked about your strategy. And then the last one that I want to talk about is really time. I think that is the biggest misconception that entrepreneurs have, is how much time it's going to take to get this thing off the ground. And if you don't want to become a statistic, you need to figure out, how can I ensure that this is a success? And the way that you ensure that this is a success is you stay at it. You stick to it. So the longer that you stick to it, the greater the chances are going to be that it's going to be a success. I just see people quitting way too early. It really is a marathon. It's not a race. You're going to get tired. And if you're not cut out for something that's going to take endurance and persistence, then you might be looking at one of these unfortunate statistics. So those are just a few areas of turbulence that I would say that you need to think about as you're starting your venture. Again, this could be many podcasts. We didn't really talk much about customers objecting perhaps to what you're selling, but I think that kind of goes back to your strategy, having just a very solid strategy, very solid model, and basically anticipating who your customer is going to be, what their possible objections could be, and overcoming those. That's an entire podcast on its own. Don't know that we'll get to that, but today I just wanted to give you some things to think about, and know that it's not going to be easy. Expect this turbulence, but if you can have a countermeasure in place, and if you stick to the things that I told you to do, especially that networking, that's going to be very key, very critical to your success as an entrepreneur. So keep at it, talk about it everywhere you go, be passionate, and then we can get into, on another episode, finally, you get your first customer. Now what? Because now you might be in the position of having to deliver results on a customer contract, or deliver a product. Well, that should not stop the sales. That should not stop the sales. So we'll get into that next time. But for now, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. Check it out. Click the link below. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're on Apple. We're on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn. We're on a couple of other platforms. Just click the link, subscribe, share, and come back. Until next time, take care.